working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. We've got some significant developments to share with you tonight. While negotiators engage in discussions about establishing safe zones in Gaza, the harsh reality reminds us that the true safe zones are hard to come by. Tragically, a devastating hospital blast has allegedly claimed the lives of hundreds, throwing a wrench into President Biden's already complicated visit to Israel. In other news, the first group of 17 Filipino expatriates from Israel is set to touch down today. According to the Department of Foreign Affairs, these returning Filipinos have chosen repatriation due to economic and security concerns. And shifting our focus to Europe, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced a significant development. Ukraine's armed forces have employed U.S.-supplied ATACMS long-range missiles for the very first time. And tonight we start in Gaza, where a devastating blast has demolished a hospital, potentially claiming the lives of hundreds of people. Both sides in the conflict, Israel and Palestinian militants, are pointing fingers at each other.
الوضع هنا مأساوي وشايف كيف الأوضاع كل الناس الله كلها معين بجاهنا. أمور صعبة جدا. عائلات كاملة بأطفالهم رضع وأطفال صغار وكبار ومشايخ اختيارية كلهم هنا يعني.
The Israeli military asserts that it was not their missile responsible for the destruction and instead blames a failed rocket launch from Islamic Jihad terrorists.
I want to give you an announcement of the event that occurred in the hospital in Gaza. I can confirm that an analysis of the IDF operational systems indicates that a barrage of rockets was fired by terrorists in Gaza, passing in close proximity to the Al-Hali Al-Ma'adi hospital in Gaza at the time it was hit. Intelligence from few sources that we have in our hands indicates that the Islamic Jihad is responsible for the failed rocket launch which hit the hospital in Gaza. I repeat, this is the responsibility of Islamic Jihad that killed innocents in the hospital in Gaza.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that the blast was caused by a barrage of rockets that misfired from Palestinian militants within Gaza, particularly Islamic Jihad. On the other side, Hamas is blaming Israel for the strike, attributing it to what they refer to as the unlimited support of the U.S. for Israel.
يتحمل مسؤوليتها الأمريكان الذين أعطوا الغطاء اللامحدود لهذا العدو ليرتكب هذه المجازر، هذه جرائم الحرب، هذه الإبادة الجماعية. يتحمل مسؤوليتها الذين وفروا الغطاء في مجلس الأمن ورفضوا إدانة هذا الاحتلال وهذا العدوان.
This tragic incident has led to international condemnation, with countries like Egypt, Qatar, Iran, Jordan, and Turkey denouncing the airstrike. Additionally, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who was meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in the Jordanian capital, has declared 3 days of mourning in response to the hospital strike. Protests have erupted in the West Bank and Jordan, where security forces used tear gas to disperse crowds of protesters attempting to storm the Israeli embassy. And let's continue with the latest developments on President Biden's visit to the region. President Biden's trip to Israel and the planned meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, along with engagements with Arab leaders in Jordan, was anticipated to be one of the riskiest of his presidency. He aimed to strike a delicate balance between showing support for Israel following the October 7 Hamas attacks, while also working to prevent a humanitarian crisis in Gaza and avoid the escalation of a broader conflict. However, this delicate balancing act faced a significant setback on the eve of his visit when news broke of a devastating hospital explosion. Hamas attributed the incident to Israeli strikes, while Israel claimed it resulted from a rocket misfire by militants in Gaza. As President Biden, who is 80 years old, boarded Air Force One, Jordan announced the cancellation of the planned four-way summit involving Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, Jordanian King Abdullah II, and Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
كما اتفقت مع الأشقاء في الأردن ومصر على إلغاء القمة المقررة في عمان اليوم مع الرئيس بايدن.
The whole region is at the brink of falling into the abyss that this new cycle of death and destruction is pushing us towards. The threat of this war expanding is real. The cost this will bring on all of us is too much to bear. All our efforts are needed to make sure we don't get there.
In response to the hospital explosion, President Biden expressed his outrage and instructed his national security team to gather more information on the incident. Even before this tragic incident, there were concerns about the risks associated with the visit, with the New York Times describing it as a trip fraught with challenges. The anger stemming from the hospital strike could potentially undermine the broader objectives of President Biden's visit, which include efforts to prevent the Israel-Hamas conflict from spreading throughout the wider Middle East. President Biden has issued warnings to Iran and Hezbollah, urging them not to become involved in the situation. He has also deployed 2 aircraft carriers to the eastern Mediterranean as a deterrent. Meanwhile, prominent experts including John Rain, Emil Hokkayem, Rim Nomtaz, Dr. Hassan Al-Hassan, and Sir Tom Beckett have come together to offer a comprehensive strategic assessment of the rapidly evolving situation in Israel and Gaza.
Israel has to neutralize an immediate threat to the settlements and to its population. And in order to do that, it has to break the capabilities of its adversary. That requires use of massive force. And there are other drivers for the use of massive force, not least the second principal objective, which is reassurance of the population. This strategic objective is, I think, going to be the most difficult one for Israel's allies, and that is to deny Hamas its operational habitat. I pick my words very carefully here, because Hamas is an organization tied very closely to its habitat. It is not a dispersed and mobile organization such as Al-Qaeda, and is not territorially expansive or mobile such as Daesh. So it's located in, thrives on a particular location and topography. We have already heard some indications from the Israeli side that they intend to make permanent changes to the conflict and indeed to their adversary. I believe this could entail changes to the topography of Gaza, and the most recent announcement in the last 24 hours suggests that that may be where they're heading. So that's the third strategic objective, deny operational habitat to Hamas. The fourth is to contain the spread of the conflict. And Israeli priorities here, I think, are West Bank, Northern Front, and then Israeli interests overseas. So each of those is going to require a different response. Each of them is very much a different kind of threat. But the Israelis have a playbook for each of those, and I think we'll see that roll out not in sequence, but at exactly the same time, because they will be acutely aware that what they do in the West Bank increases the likelihood of any one of those fronts igniting. I mean, just colleagues will talk in more depth, I think, about this, but particularly focused on the West Bank at the moment for the Israelis, that's the priority, that's where the majority of the settlements are. So this has become increasingly a question for Netanyahu and the security establishment, including the IDF, their credibility as the national defensive force, in particular for settlements. So a couple of strategic considerations that flow from that. Will this be an internationalized conflict? I think the Israeli desire will be very much for it not to be, other than for the continuing flow of aid from the US. That has already begun. Other countries, including the UK, have offered. But the Israelis will seek to own and dominate the battle space. Don't want other actors in it. On the side of Hamas, however, we have seen an attempt at least to enkindle sympathy through popular demonstrations, popular manifestations in other countries, and we've seen reciprocal demonstrations from sympathizers and also most notably from Iran, which again we'll talk about later. But Hamas's objective here will be to draw in both material aid and diplomatic and moral support. So there's going to be a tension, there's a fight there over internationalizing this. Personally, I think the only international dimension that we will see will be external targeting, both of Israelis targeting Hamas. I think they will cast their net very wide and target Hamas's supporters and leadership. I think we'll also see some internationalization, as we already have done, sadly, targeting of Jewish interests overseas. So we'll see a renewal of their intelligence capabilities. I think at the moment they will lean out to partners to assist with that, particularly on Hamas. But this will be a feature of the ongoing, of the long tail of this. And also, I think we can expect to see much more selective kinetic activity as the target base is refreshed. It's going to be very difficult to agree with the Israelis an end point for this conflict. They haven't given any indication what constitutes success. There may be significant redeployments made for military reasons, but I think they will want to keep this open-ended until they have reached what they believe is effective decapitation and disablement of Hamas.
And tonight, growing concerns surround the approximately 199 hostages who are currently in the custody of Hamas terrorists in Gaza. Now, among those held is 21-year-old French-Israeli Mia Sham, as we reported yesterday, who was recently featured in a propaganda video released by Hamas.
Yesterday, I saw my baby on television. I saw she's alive. I saw that she was, I heard before rumors that she was shot in the shoulder or in the leg. So I can see she was shot in her shoulder. I see she had an operation. She looks very terrified. She looks like she's in big pain. I can see that she's saying what they tell her to say, but I can see that she's stable. I can see she needs medical care. I didn't know if she's dead or alive until yesterday. All I knew is that she's might be kidnapped. I'm begging the world to bring my baby back home.
We're here to say one thing and one thing only. We want Mia and all the other hostages that are captured in Gaza Strip to bring them back home. That's all the reason we are here. Mia is an innocent child that just went to go to a party with her friends and end up kidnapped and being away from home. And that's what we hear. We want to bring her back.
From the video, I'm Professor Hagai Levin, the head of the medical team. From the video of Mia, we can learn that the responsibility is on the Hamas to make sure that all the hostages are returned safely home. The Hamas is obliged to supply the medical data on all the hostages and to allow all of them to get proper medical care. According to our data, there are other sick and injured hostages, including in high severity, and we demand to know their condition and to ensure that they get proper care. Their medical situation is deteriorating from moment to moment. The misery is enormous, and they are in immense danger for disability, permanent disability, and death. As a physician in Israel, we, the Israeli physicians, provide the best medical care to anyone, including Palestinians from Gaza, who gets humanitarian treatment in Israel.
Nothing, only that she's missing. I knew that she's alive because my daughter, she's a fighter, she's a warrior. Really, she's a lion, she really is. She's been through a lot in her life, and we all knew that. You can ask her brothers too. I knew it. The problem was that every time I opened the TV and I saw the numbers of the dead people and the missing people and the captured people, it was a bit hard to stay strong. But I really knew that she's fighting and that she will not give up. And I'm thinking that she's encouraged other captures there. I'm sure she is, because that's who she is. You know, she likes to cook to everyone and she likes to make everybody happy. And she has the biggest heart. She's my best friend. Her brothers, they are attached to her. She has a small sister, only 10 years old. She's like a mother to her.
In a significant move, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has suspended the implementation of the Maharlika Investment Fund, or MIF, this year, pending further examination. Now, this announcement was made by Malacanang today. In an official memorandum dated October 12, President Marcos, acting through Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, has directed the Bureau of the Treasury, Land Bank of the Philippines, and the Development Bank of the Philippines to halt the implementation of the implementing rules and regulations associated with Republic Act 11954, also known as the Maharlika Investment Fund Act of 2023. Now, Bersamin provided insight into the decision, stating President Marcos issued a suspension because he wanted to carefully study the IRR to ensure that the fund's purpose aligns with the country's development goals, all while maintaining transparency and accountability safeguards. Turning our attention to China, President Xi Jinping made a significant statement during the opening ceremony of a forum for international delegates to the Belt and Road Forum in Beijing. President Xi emphasized that China rejects economic coercion and the concept of decoupling.
不搞意识形态对立，不搞地缘政治博弈，也不搞集团政治对抗，反对 单边制裁，反对经济胁迫，也反对脱钩断链。中国国家发展银行、开发银行、中国国家开发银行、中国进出口银行将各设立3500亿元人民币融资窗口。 丝路基金新增资金800亿元人民币，以市场化、商业化方式支持共建“一带一路”项目。
Furthermore, President Xi highlighted that the Belt and Road Infrastructure Initiative is aimed at injecting fresh momentum into the global economy. He noted that the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, focuses on enhancing policy, infrastructure, trade, financial, and people-to-people connectivity, contributing to revitalizing the global economy. The BRI, a flagship policy of President Xi Jinping, seeks to strengthen China's ties with the world through investments and infrastructure projects. As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.